All right. Nicole was born, how you're saying, and 3:15 on the 20th of June 1967, which would make her in her 50s now, 57. Okay. Or is it 57 or is it 58? No, 57. It'll make her 57 years old. And so from her date of birth, we can generate her chart. And her year pillar is Yin Fire Goat. Her month pillar, Yang Fire Horse. Her day pillar is Yin Wood Rabbit. And her hour is Yin Water Goat. So from there, we can see she's got 2 goats, 1 rabbit, and 1 horse. Now, rabbits and goats do combine. They combine to produce a half-wood combination. So there we can say from that she is a dominant chart. Even though she's got a horse and a goat on the year and a horse on the month. So those two combine, but they're a 6 harmony combination. So it's not as strong as a 3 harmony combination. And so we would say that she is still dominant, the wood. So because she's dominant, of course, you'd like favorable elements would be wood and also water that does support wood. Okay? But because, though, of that horse and goat combination, it's really affecting her chart. Otherwise, she just wants wood and be a dominant wood. So that would have been like representing the first half of her life. And normally, your year chart, your year pillar has the most influence on the first 20 years of your life. And then your month pillar, the next 20 years of your life. So up to about 40 years old, she had issues. And if you can remember in her 20s, yes, she had quite a bit of issues. And I think that was where she wasn't dominant anymore. Well, she wasn't dominant during her 20s. I guess she was what you call it, living in someone else's shadow a bit. And everyone knew them as, she was one half of the Tom and Nicole couple. Yeah, in her 20s was basically dominated with marriage to her husband. And I guess she was living for her husband and he was being the biggest star. Well, he was a big star, big established Hollywood star to begin with. He was dominant over her and overshadowed her. So even though marrying him, it elevated her in Hollywood and got her Hollywood recognition. It still wasn't her as her own. She was still doing things with her husband and going everywhere with her husband. And I think that she also had to, well, I shouldn't say she had to, but I guess she joined Scientology at that point because of him. And as we all know, he was such an ardent Scientologist. And from what we've heard, he's actually very high up in Scientology. And I guess any organization or whatever would be looking after their biggest stars. Their biggest the members that are the most famous and most prominent. And that would be Tom Cruise. I know we've heard of John Travolta. That's also a Scientologist, but I think we'd all agree that Tom is probably a bigger star. Yeah, and what we've heard is that this church also has a very strong influence, or had a very strong influence and still has a very strong influence over his life and his love life and so forth. And it was even a suggestion, I guess, that Scientology or the Church of Scientology was an influence in him breaking up with Nicole. Okay, so this is all rumors and so to speak, but I guess they weren't happy with her for not being totally in it. And I guess he adopted children with Tom, that Isabella and Connor, they adopted, which I found quite surprising since she adopted them when she was still in her 20s. And for a woman in her 20s, that's the most fertile time. So I don't know why, but I think I have a feeling it was at his instigation rather than hers that they go and adopt. But they've both been raised as Scientologists. And I heard that later on when they split, they kept away from her because she was known or labelled as a suppressive person or something like that. That's what I heard. But either way, she's been estranged from them for many years, basically since they divorced. She and Tom divorced, which is a shame. They're not biologically hers, but I guess if it's a child or children that you've raised from a baby, you're going to have such a bond with them. It's just like so many fur baby parents, people with pets. They're not even of the same species, but and you've raised them and been with them all the time. I mean, people have such a bond with their pets that they're like their children, even though they're not even human. Yeah, so I understand the feeling of how she must have been pretty hurt that she's lost a relationship with them since they were children. It must really hurt. So in that respect, I do feel for her. As I say, Nicole has had an absolute stellar career. I mean, a very accomplished, and she's been in so many big films and also small ones as well. And I think she's been continuously working for so long. And imagine how long starring in a movie takes to actually film. It's months. And you're constantly releasing it year after year. I mean, chunks of months of your life. And when you're filming, it's like 18-hour film days. So it's really full on. And, we're having a look at her career. She was born as Nicole Mary Kidman. And I guess she's one of the few stars that actually use their real names because a lot of people use their stage names. I mean, apparently even Susan Sarandon, that's not her real name. And, Whoopi Goldberg, that's not her birth name. I think her birth name is actually Susan, not Whoopi. And there's so many other stars that use stage names as well. I mean, I think even her former husband, Tom Cruise, was Thomas something Cruise. I think that's the closest. And people have just used entirely different names. Or like even David Bowie, the late David Bowie, the singer. Apparently his real name was David Jones, not David Bowie. I guess it makes it a bit sound more interesting rather than just a plain Jonesies. Well, anyway, now, Nicole's career. It all started in 1983. As a 16-year-old, she had her first film debut in Bush Christmas. And also, she was in BMX Bandits. Now, I've never seen the movie, but I keep hearing about Nicole being in BMX Bandits as a curly, red-headed girl. And I think all her life has been curly, this massive curly hair. But now, over the past decades, her hair's been straight. So I don't know whether or not she's continually straightened, had a straight perm or not, or just had it blow dried all the time, or if that's just a wig. So, okay, that's I think that's enough on Nicole's hair. Now, during that time when she started, she was in a Young Earth Lux cycle, and that was a pig year. And interestingly enough, she's got the goat and also the rabbit. And it's given her a full wood combination. And that's really supportive of her. So I'm not surprised that's when her career really started her career. And that supports her totally. And, because of the rabbit and the goat being on the day and the hour, or particularly the rabbit, because of it's on the day. This is going to be a feature of her entire life. So she is pretty stable. I know a lot of actors and actresses, they have changing charts for a very good reason, is because they have to change with the roles that they're in. They're playing different roles all the time and portraying a different persona all the time that they've got to adapt. So, yeah, she really is the same throughout her life, except the first half of her life. I guess she's got issues because of the horse and goat combination there. But I'll go back, like I mentioned before, were issues with her husband then. Okay, and besides BMX Bandits, she, I think, also had a supporting role in TV series 5 Mile Creek. I didn't really hear about that as much. Now, however, the next year, 1984, she's still in Young Earth. Okay. However, it was the rat year. And if you've cottoned on before, the rat year, or rats, is a direct clash with horses. Now, she has a horse on her month pillar. Now, the month pillar, besides representing your career, your business and money, what it also represents is your mother. And during that year, her mother actually had breast cancer. So you've got the rat clashing with the horse there being her mother. And so her mother got sick. And so being a good girl, I'll have to give her credit for this. So she studied massage therapy to help her mother with physical therapy. Very good, very nice daughter that she was being there, very unselfish there. Now, 1987. This was during the monkey luck cycle. And 1987 was also a rat year. So there again, there's more wood for her because the rabbit itself is pure wood. And what does she like? She likes wood. She appeared in the Australian miniseries Vietnam. And that was a very well-known series that she was in. I think she played the lead or the main character's younger sister. So she was actually quite prominent in that series. And then the next year, 1988, she was in a movie called Emerald City. I think that was a TV movie. And for those that are not familiar, Sydney is also known as the Emerald City. Because, New York has a name of the Big Apple, and Paris is known as the City of Lights, that sort of thing. And Sydney is also known as the Emerald City for those that are not familiar with the term. And and that was during the Dragon year. And she was in that Dragon year. She was still in the monkey luck cycle. So those two formed a part water combination. Now, water is actually a very good element for her because it provides good support for her. Now, the following year, 1989, she starred with Sam Neill playing his wife in Dead Calm. And that was a breakthrough role for her. And I remember watching that movie and that Billy Zane was really creepy. I think a castaway that they rescued, or someone in the boat that they happened to rescue, but he turned out to be an absolute psycho and tried to kill them. It was all filmed on like a boat. Okay, so that was during the snake year in a monkey luck cycle. So there's a combination there. And that year as well released Bangkok Hilton. Now that series was an Australian series, and I think it was written especially for Nicole. And she starred as someone that was duped into becoming, unwittingly, a drug mule for a boyfriend, someone she met on holidays, and he filled her luggage up with heroin. And going through Bangkok airport, he made sure he was scarce, and she got caught with it. And she was going to face the firing squad for that crime, so to speak. Yeah. Okay, for those who that haven't watched it, I won't spoil the end for you, but that was rather gripping, and she was fantastic in that drama series. I remember watching it, and it was great. Now, the very next year, 1990. This was a horse year as well, and guess what? The horse year is her career pillar as well, and that's when the movie Days of Thunder was released. And Days of Thunder was where she met her husband. Well, her former husband now, and it was a future husband then. Actually, they filmed it, I think, 1989, but it wasn't released till 1990, with Tom Cruise. And from that, she became Hollywood famous from that movie. You know? And, okay, now that horse year, and with her horse combination, so that horse, I guess, combined it with the other goat that she had, and she actually married that year as well. So really, it emphasized that goat side, the first side. So it changed to what she naturally isn't, that horse and goat combination. It was really mucking up what she naturally is. And I guess it's reflected like in her 20s, throughout her 20s, she's had it with her husband. She was pretty much I would say both. This is it seems like a contradiction. She was at the same time elevated in terms of career-wise and recognition and her fame, and dragged up and became a Hollywood star because of him, because of Tom Cruise, but also at the same time overshadowed by him. It makes sense. And I guess at home, you see all that, but I think at home, she was really, I guess, the submissive partner, and he was the really dominant partner, which is contrary to her nature. Her nature is being dominant, being the dominant partner, so to speak, but she was unable to be what she naturally wanted to be because of Tom Cruise. Now, I have not had a look at Tom's chart and her chart together, because that would take too much time, because her chart alone, there's been so much going on with her that we don't have the time today, but I will be looking at Tom's chart and also her present husband now, Keith Urban's chart, later on. Now, 1991 was another goat year. Okay, and then she was in the movie Flirting, about high school girls coming of age. And then 1992, was a monkey year, and she entered into another luck cycle, is Yin Earth. And she starred in that movie Far and Away with Tom Cruise. I think that was about migrants from Ireland in the US in the 1800s. And I think they both had to put on an Irish accent. I kind of haven't watched that movie. I've only seen snippets of it. But it just seemed weird seeing them both put on that Irish accent. It wasn't what I equate Nicole with. Not familiar with Nicole speaking that way. Now then, in Yin Earth luck cycle, and then the next year in 1993, it was a rooster year. Now, that rooster year clashes with rabbit. So I think, and rabbit is her house of spouse. So I think that there may have been some issues at home with Tom, but I guess it was only because it's 1 year, I think they were able to sail through it, which they obviously did. Now, she started in the movie Malice with Alec Baldwin as the villain, and I have to say she did a very good job, because if an actor or actress makes you hate the character, they've done a good job. I did not like her character in that movie. Yeah, it was real malice as well. I'm just saying, real malice. Now, there's so many other movies that she's been in, so I'm not going to cover all of them, otherwise we'll be here forever. So I'll be looking at the main points now. And the main points is in 1999. Now, there was a movie called Eyes Wide Shut, and she starred with Tom Cruise then. I think it was a Stanley Kubrick movie. It must have been his last movie before he died. And I think that was heavily censored because there was a lot of nudity. And apparently I heard it took like 2 years for them to film that movie. And I think that must have put a lot of pressure on their marriage, because from then on it seemed like it was the beginning of the end for them as a couple. I just imagine though, having to work on being and shooting all the time on a movie for 2 years with your spouse. I guess it just takes a lot out of the both of you. Okay, and yourself as a couple as well. And so the rooster, though, that year, and because 1999 was in the rooster luck cycle. Now, as I say, because I mentioned the rooster before, that was a rooster year in 1993. Now in 1999, she's entered into a rooster luck cycle. Now, luck cycles last from 5 to 7 years in terms of that. When you have a clash with your house's spouse and you're married, that normally signals trouble. Okay, if it's 1 year, couples may be able to sail through it, especially if you know beforehand that, hey, you get forewarning, say, hey, this year is coming up and it's going to be clashing with your house or spouse. So be nice, be more gentle with each other, and any arguments, please don't take it to heart. Try to sail through that year. And especially if you have forewarning through a reading, then knowing that beforehand, it would help a lot. And because you're really conscious of that, then you don't blame your partner, you know. And so this is what one of the very good advantages of getting a reading is knowing beforehand when trouble's coming. Yeah, you need to know the bad stuff as well as good stuff, simply so you can prepare. And knowledge is very powerful, knowing beforehand. Okay, so then you know it's not your partner why they're acting like this. It's just the year. So you don't take it too much to heart and you don't blame them. Okay, just smile, yes dear, yes dear, yes dear. Okay, until the year's over. However, if it's 5 to 7 years of this bad energy, it's very difficult to get through it. 1 year you can do it, but 5 to 7 years asking you to grit your teeth and bear it, very difficult. And so I guess that's why in 2001, we were still in the rooster luck cycle, the last year of that rooster luck cycle. They separated and officially divorced by the end of that year. And that was a snake year as well. And the snakes and roosters combined. So more power to the rooster then. It became even more of a metal. Now, this is the thing with Nicole. You know, as I said afterwards, after a divorce though, she became more successful. I guess after coming out of the shadow of her husband, who was being, I would say, behind the scenes at home, would have been quite oppressive. I don't think she would have felt as oppressive as so forth, but I think she might have felt obligated to be accommodating to him, to his domineering personality. I guess she would have had to adapt in order to make the pairing work. So later on, I will actually have a look and assess both of their charts as a couple And then we'll see what the actual interactions with. But I have a feeling that he was being more dominant and dominating her. And her, I guess she could not be herself. So it was actually a good thing that she came out of his shadow, so to speak. Because after she divorced him, after the divorce, she became more successful, if people can remember. She started filming movies on her own, got her own individual billing, and her star power really went up and became more successful after her divorce. Now, in 2005, she met Keith Urban. 2005, though, was a rooster year again. So, and I said, rooster clashes with her house of spouse. However, and because she's already divorced, she's single and available, any clashes with the house of spouse then means that you can meet someone, which she did. She met Keith during that year. And lo and behold, in 2002, she went into another luck cycle, which is Yang Metal. Now, Yang Metal is Nicole's proper power because she is yin wood. Now, with power, for a woman, power represents her husband because traditionally a woman got her status and standing through her husband. Even though times have changed, the old rules still apply and they still hold when astrology was formulated, and it still works. And during 2005, she was still in that Yang Metal luck cycle. So yes, there she goes. She met her proper husband. Okay, and in 2006, the next year, was the dog year. Now, the dog and the rabbit combines. And the rabbit is her house of spouse. So she got married with Keith. It's unsurprising that they married then. So it fits all the way for her. So she's got a combination with her house of spouse. And from what we've heard, that it's been quite a happy marriage and they're still together. That's a proper husband with her. So much so that, you see, in 2012, she went into yin metal luck cycle. And yin metal is improper spouse for her or improper husband for her. So I wasn't surprised then that they still stayed together. She might have met someone. Yeah, but that's because she's already got a proper power, proper husband. This is improper power, improper husband. So she doesn't need to go there. There might have been a few issues, maybe a bit of jealousy behind the scenes, but I think she's stuck to her proper husband, proper power. So good on her for that. And you know what? I think I remember that Keith Urban is also a goat like her. I think they're the same age. And, you have two goats. This is the thing. Normally, people discourage those with the same signs marrying each other because you're too similar. You want someone because, traditional thinking is if they were only going on the year, say if the goat doesn't have a good year, if she doesn't have a good year, if her husband's another sign and he might get a good year, then it helps. And so otherwise you tend to just go up together, down together. Up together's fine, but what about the down together? Though for most people, that's an issue. Though for these people, because they've got so much money, it doesn't matter. So their bad days are much better than any of our best days, so to speak. And also because they have so much money, they don't need to worry about what qualities, what life skills the other person has, because goats tend to be very artistic, and they tend to be more in the air and not really grounded, so to speak. So they tend to have difficulties dealing with the practicalities in life. I guess that's also because they're artistic, they're up in the air then. Then I guess, and if you've got two people up in the air, like he's also a musician, she's an actress, so they're both artists. So to speak, very lovey-dovey, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have a team of PAs, assistants, and professionals to deal with all the things that they're unable to or unwilling to do, which I strongly suspect that's the case with two goats. But it doesn't matter, as I say again, because they've got so much money, they can afford to hire housekeepers, cooks, PA people that'll help with all the admin that they cannot do themselves. You know, car insurance going up, looking after maintenance of their properties around the world. I don't think they'll be doing that themselves personally. They would have property managers and their own PAs is coordinating with all those and booking cleaners and so forth and maintenance. See, when you have money, a lot of things are easier in terms of options and resources to get hired help. So you don't have to have it. So in a way, in a way you're happier because life becomes easier. And if life is easier, you have the less stress on yourself. And the less stress you have, the less pressure there is on you personally and also on your marriage or relationships if you don't have that. If you cut off and avoided that big part of what causes stress and puts pressure on marriages. So I guess but not all cases. I mean, look, Tom Cruise would have been a lot wealthier. Okay, so they would have had all that hired help, but it's just the personality with him and the other issues with him. In a combination, that would have been the issue. And they've been very happy together, and she finally got the biological child that she wanted in 2008. She gave birth to her first daughter, her first biological daughter, Sunday Rose. And that was during the rat year in the dog luck cycle. Okay? And then in 2010, she had a second daughter, Faith Margaret, and that was through a surrogate. And I think it's because that she just had problems getting pregnant, so to speak. She just could not get pregnant, and so then she had they decided to go through a surrogate. So that was during the tiger year, 2010. And that was also during the dog luck cycle. And the dog and the tiger combines to form a partial fire combination. Now, fire, though, to a wood person like Nicole is output. So normally, when we look at can a woman have children, or a woman's children is her output, it's production. So even though she physically did not give birth herself, I guess it was still her eggs and she still got a child. So yeah, indication of children there. So that is Nicole Kidman for you. Okay, and I do hope that she has continues to have a very successful career and life. And I guess through what she's been through, she deserves to have a happier life. And it looks like she's found it with Keith, two goats. And later, I will do a relationship compatibility analysis, looking at both Nicole and Tom Cruise, and also Nicole and her present husband, Keith Urban, to see what the difference is in those two combinations. So I think that will be very interesting, having a look at the nature of her relationship with Tom and the nature of her relationship with Keith, and whether or not this is going to be a staying power. Because having a look at her chart there, she has already been through the rooster luck cycle, which would clash with her rabbit, which is the house of spouse. So she doesn't have any more clashes coming up. So the only thing she's got, I guess, yeah, they can worry, but that's all the way in 2052. So, until she's in her 80s, but then, you don't really care in old age. Though, you know what? You can't really judge just from her chart. To check whether or not a marriage has longevity, you have to check both charts, both partners' charts, to see if there's going to be any clashes coming up. Because if it's not coming from one side, it could come from the other. As you know, people's hearts and feelings change. And people will change, and it might not be you. It could come from your spouse that decides that they no longer love you. And then what do you do? Even though you might continue to love your spouse. It's hard, but that's reality, is that, it has to be two people, not just the love from one side. Unfortunately, it has to be love coming from both sides, and both people agree to love and stay together. So that's Nicole Kidman.